What is going on, everyone? 83% of the S&P 500 closed down in the red today, and we are set for an exciting next couple of days as the stock market is starting to reverse. We have an important interest rate event and speech from Jerome Powell tomorrow, and there are a whole bunch of problems going on in the Middle East. In today's video, we're going to cover what's going on right now, why the market is starting to reverse, and how to take advantage of all this. And we're not wasting any time either. So Tom, let's get right to it.
Yeah, as we can tell, the S&P 500 had a complete reversal today, Mike. This was a pretty bad thing to see overall if you are a bull in the short term, but considering everything going on in the Middle East and everything starting to stack up against the market here, it makes a little bit of sense to see a little bit of rejection. Unfortunately, last night, the SPY started really selling off as the escalation between Israel and Iran started to intensify a little bit, and today we saw that continue to play out as the SPY's back under a key $600 area. Today, I saw that the United States started really ramping up a lot of their talks to get involved in this. Trump even threatened the leader of Iran today, posting on Truth Social that he was an easy target and that our patience was wearing thin. So definitely some pretty crazy rhetoric by Trump out here on Truth Social against Iran. Again, he did say that they're not going to take them out yet, he did say, but he did say that he's calling for their unconditional surrender. And of course, I don't think Iran is necessarily willing to play ball with that quite yet. This situation's definitely unfolding in a pretty scary way, Mike. We saw the VIX start to really pop off today. It was up 12.9%. As we can tell, a lot of fear is starting to creep back in, and you know, we've been looking at the VIX off of this base here for the past few trading days, and I don't know, it looks like it's going to be extending past that 22 resistance from a couple days ago.
Yeah, whenever we have big events in the market, it definitely makes for a lot of excitement from a trading perspective, because as you see the VIX move up just like it is now, what this is directly showing is market makers and market participants showing that they expect bigger moves to happen in the short term, because this volatility index is essentially made up of the price of the S&P 500's options. So the higher those go, the higher this VIX goes, and it basically shows how big the moves will be in the future. And we could see back from April when VIX shot up and there was a bunch of trading opportunity, it goes hand in hand. So we definitely are starting to see an uptick here. It's definitely going to be exciting in a trading sense because the bigger moves, as well as it just makes it a lot easier for options to rise. But Tom, there's also a lot going on with this Middle East sense where we're seeing like U.S. assets definitely get like transferred over there in ways that are definitely a little bit surprising.
Definitely, and I know yesterday we definitely talked about this where the Air Force is moving some of their refueling tankers over to the Middle East, and then today we started to see a Reuters report of us obviously sending over a lot of different warplanes as well. As we can see here, they're highlighting that the officials said that the deployments include F-16s, F-22s, and F-35 fighter aircraft, which are obviously some of the more advanced fighter aircraft that the U.S. does have. So this is definitely an ongoing situation that needs to be watched closely, and we need to keep seeing what goes on. I know that Trump actually met with his National Security Council today for over an hour, and they discussed a lot of things obviously during that, and I'm sure that we'll be seeing a lot more updates come out over the next couple of days regarding this, and keep looking for more updates to come out with the United States' involvement in this. I even saw the leader of Israel coming out today, Benjamin Netanyahu, even saying that, hey, the U.S. is probably going to get involved in this within a few days, and I would think that the involvement is pretty close considering everything that we see here. So it's something just to keep in the back of your mind as we navigate the next couple weeks of the market.
Yeah, and that's one thing the market doesn't love the idea of, because as you get involved into conflicts, it brings on a lot of like uncertainty and like uncontrollable, unpredictable problems. So it definitely makes sense to see some selling pressure like we are now. The more this issue stays in the headlines and the worse it gets, the worse it will be for stocks. As we do see some selling pressure move into the markets now, we will see people kind of like sell off because of that. You know, as we're seeing the market sell, it'll naturally cause like an increase in fear, which will make people, you know, start to take profits or start to buy puts to hedge, or maybe prevent purchases that would have otherwise happened. And all of these have relatively bearish effects on the market, and it builds on itself. So that there definitely is a risk of a pullback in the short term, and we'll cover cover some more specific levels as the video goes on. But like another thing that's certainly worth keeping on watch as well, and we've been talking about this a bunch lately, is ticker symbol USO. As we have all this drama and problems going on in the Middle East, that is pushing oil prices higher, which will not only make for more expensive gas prices pretty soon, but it also has like a big impact on like stocks and tickers in the energy industry.
Yeah, I really like USO's chart in the short term, Mike. Looking at the daily, it actually extended up above the high from Friday, which was great to see. And we are getting close to some very big levels on USO's chart. And we can see that zooming out on the daily, there's been multiple hits and reactions right around this like 83.50 all the way up to like $85 resistance. Yeah, I guess you could say 84.50 at that recent peak. But I'm definitely going to be watching for a potential breakout of this range. USO has been stuck down here for quite a while, as we can see. So it'd be pretty cool to get some good price action out past here. I know that the other oil stocks were definitely still pretty good today, like ZOM, Chevron, and others, although I just don't think that they have that parabolic and as fun price action as USO does.
Yeah, so either way, keep a close eye on the oil energy industry because it definitely is moving quite a bit, and USO especially has some pretty solid movement. But another area of the market that you definitely have to pay attention to right now is GLD and just gold in general. We saw some very interesting data today, basically showing that central banks are forecasting more gold buying. So according to a survey from the World Gold Council, 95% of central banks expect their gold reserves to rise over the next 12 months, and a record 43% said they plan to increase their holdings during that time. So basically, we already knew there's been a lot of money flowing into gold, not only due to everything going on in the world right now, but we are seeing central banks around the world buying as well, which, definitely should say something.
It really should. And then one thing I know in the short term is that gold obviously is something that people like to hedge with fear, right? And there's been a lot of fearful things going on this year, whether we're talking about Trump and the tariffs, right? That's really fueled things in 2025. We can see where GLD was down around 245 to 250. We've ran all the way up to like $320 pretty much within just a few months, or obviously, around half a year since the beginning of 2025. So it does seem like gold is a little bit overextended, Mike, but we just keep seeing more and more crazy things happen in the short term. I'm definitely watching this recent peak on GLD around like 317.60 to 318. I'll be watching that double top for a potential break over the next few days. And I know that gold's not so popular brother, we'll say, silver, has actually been in the headlines a lot more as it continues to break out up another 2.15% today. And man, Mike, these big money plays are on fire in the short term with silver.
Beautiful, beautiful. And another thing, too, that's actually going to make this even more exciting is that tomorrow is actually a key day for gold and silver, and they do tend to move quite a bit off of these FOMC interest rate decisions. So at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to know whether Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve decided to keep rates the same or cut them, but they're most likely going to keep rates the same. There's over a 99.9% chance of this priced in. And then 30 minutes later is what's actually going to be even more important, because this is when Jerome Powell is going to speak, and depending on what he says he is seeing in the economy, and you could just say in general right now with the world, and how that is going to affect his decision-making process when it comes to the next interest rate cut, will have a big impact, of course, in the stock market and, of course, the economy as well. So 2:30 p.m. Eastern time will be especially important tomorrow, and these days are always fun.
They really are, and I think it's even going to be more fun this time considering how much Trump has been bashing Powell in the short term. I really cannot wait for that press conference tomorrow. Make sure you check out the Stocked Up Live YouTube channel. I will have this live for everybody during that time. I'm sure it's going to be one hell of a fun event tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so be ready for that on the Stocked Up Live channel there. And Mike, I know that, Jerome Powell, he obviously gets a lot of credit. There is actually some building permits and housing starts coming out 1 hour before the market opens tomorrow as well. But I think considering everything going on right now, that's definitely going to get overshadowed a bit in the short term. Same thing with the earnings. We do have ACB and even Smith & Wesson tomorrow, which could be interesting, but nonetheless, I don't think anybody really cares about that considering that we can have so much fun with VIX and everything else like that in the short term.
Exactly. And speaking of short-term moves, we definitely have to look at solar stocks today because they got murdered. So basically, there was an update with the Senate's version of this big beautiful bill, and they are basically taking out like tax credits for the solar industry much sooner than expected. Now they're set to get phased out in 2028 rather than 2032, and basically this hurts this industry a lot. The only thing is that this new proposal is certainly not set in stone because it would still have to be, approved and agreed upon. But either way, the news is not good, and it crushed stocks like RUN, FSLR, Enphase, and others. So we definitely had to bring that up, and there's definitely a lot of selling pressure coming into these stocks.
Yeah, like whenever Sunrun closes down over 40%, like you have to talk about it, right? That was an insane move. And I know that recently there's actually been a lot of optimism and a lot of buying pressure off of some of these recent lows. You know, we've been seeing some really good recoveries as traders were expecting this bill to be revised to possibly keep the tax credits in there. And with this new revision coming out and with that not being fixed, it definitely is very striking. I mean, look at how RUN popped up 63% from that drop there on the prospect of those credits getting fixed. Now, obviously, they're giving back all of those gains and then some. So just have these stocks on the radar. There could be some short-term problems in the solar industry. A lot of people are asking right now, they're like, hey, should I start buying it up? Personally, I'm waiting a little while. I know the Trump admin isn't too friendly with these. And I do think that just being patient here and letting it play out for a little while would be the smarter way to go in my eyes.
I agree. Like, I think there can be opportunity with these stocks as time goes by, but I don't think now is a great moment, especially given the news and just the entire situation at hand. But given the move, we definitely wanted to cover it. So, Tom, shifting over into SPY, which is the main ticker everyone is going to be watching, especially for tomorrow, what are you seeing as key levels of support and resistance for tomorrow? And is there anything else you're seeing on the charts?
One of the most crucial things that I'm identifying in the short term is this trend of lower highs going on. This is a pretty bad downtrend that we're actually seeing on the SPY from the high of yesterday. And we're seeing this play out even into the end of day today, where we're now even breaking now down below another trend of higher lows. This is definitely not what people like to see. You could even say it's like wedging here into the end of day today, and it's pointing down. With the SPY closing under $600, that's a pretty negative sign. I'm definitely going to be watching $600 very closely tomorrow. If the SPY ends up like ripping above there in pre-market and we see a good hold and push back above there, then we might have to adapt up. Personally, I think that the SPY will stay under 600, and if that's the case, watching some of these recent supports that I have marked down here at the bottom of your screen with the arrows, specifically 595.50 was huge the other day, so that has to be on the radar, and I really like that recent low as well at 594. So that little range there will be extremely important. If that starts to give out, I think that the selling pressure could get a lot more extreme, and as we zoom out, we can just tell that the SPY has had a lot of weird price action ever since, like, we'll just say Wednesday, June 11th. You know, we peaked out right there with the SPY recently, and it's been very flat and choppy ever since as we've been seeing this conflict start to develop, among other things. But, Mike, that's what I'm seeing, and if the SPY keeps staying under 600, it's not going to be the best sign.
Yeah, like the market is at a very fragile point right now where if we do see a follow through with this short-term downtrend, it can definitely be pretty rough because, again, as we see the market fall, it causes people to act in relatively bearish ways, like selling out of stocks, buying hedges, and doing other bearish things, and that only further fuels that feedback loop of selling pressure. So it should be very interesting over these next few days, especially given all of the big events we have as well. So it's definitely an exciting time to be a trader. So let's jump right into some setups and predictions then. A stock that is definitely on watch is Adobe, and it is to the downside. They recently reported earnings and are having a good continuation lower with good momentum as the stock fell by like just under like 5% today. It's sitting right around like this like 382 area, and I definitely like the risk reward playing this one to the downside, where maybe in the worst case scenario a stop loss is placed right around like 388 or so, giving around like $6 of risk. And like in a better case scenario where the setup wins, I could see the setup retesting like 370, which would bring around like $12 in rewards. So it's definitely on my bearish radar.
Yeah, it's definitely a good risk reward setup right there. So I'll definitely be watching it in the short term as well, Mike. With my first setup, I'm actually watching Tesla to the downside here in the short term. I noticed today they fell off quite a bit, down 3.8%. They were one of the worser moves, we'll say, out of the Mag 7. Going back to the heat map, it was a pretty bloody day overall, but out of tech, a lot of it was flat. But Tesla down 3.88% was definitely a pretty bloody thing to see there. If I do see a good continuation down under 315 tomorrow, I will continue watching Tesla to the downside. We can see that looking at the book map here, there was a lot of buyers actually stacked up at that 315 level today, and it actually filled those buyers, and then we can see that the buyers kind of restack there for the end of the day. So it just shows how strong this level is, and even as 315 started to like fill there, we saw even more buyers come in around like 314. So if this like $1 range around 314, 315 gives out, I'll be watching for more downside pressure with Tesla. I just did notice that on the daily chart, it's starting to get a little bit weak up here at the top. It had been trying to recover up recently, and there's like a bit of a double top going on around like 332 to 335.
Very interesting, not only with the chart, but also the book map. I thought it was so interesting and so useful how you pointed out that once 315 broke, the buyers restacked up there, but then also there were secondary levels that came in right around 314 and 313 as well. So very interesting. If you guys haven't tried out book map, you're definitely missing out. Stocked up viewers do save. Check out that link down below, but shout out to you, Tom, for showcasing this. I'll definitely check that out for tomorrow. But another ticker that is definitely on watch is SLV. You already knew this, and it is to the upside. We've been covering this one so much over the past year, and while sometimes I get a little bit tired of saying it again, it has just been crushing it. There have been a ton of big money plays with this one. The stock is putting great pressure on its recent highs, and the price action is super consistent. And all of this fear and just like uncertainty and just like BS that is growing around the world, it definitely helps a safe haven asset like silver. I know it has been not as hot as gold, but it is still doing extremely well. And in the short term, it's definitely outperforming. So it's definitely still on my bullish radar. While I wouldn't be surprised if this went up tomorrow, this is more so a play for like the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, it looks awesome in the short term, though. I do love the short-term price action here, Mike, but I do think that as we look at it over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we will start to see like a bit more of an extension, and it's just awesome to see it continuing to show its strength in the short term. 2.15%. Even as, like, let's say gold has been a little bit weak over the past few days, silver has been kind of outperforming it in the ultra short term, so that's made me very happy there. With my next setup, I'm looking at CoreWeave for another potential upside move. I could not believe CoreWeave got through its recent resistance around 167 and continued today. It was an amazing thing to see. We saw that early morning 160 and even 164 breakout. We've mentioned this one, or I mentioned this one yesterday. It was a pretty awesome setup, and I thought that the breakout this morning, even the hold around that 160 support there, where I'm pointing out, ended up being a pretty good entry point off support for that secondary breakout to come in. But if we can see CoreWeave break its high of day from today around 175.50, continue watching it up, I think that the 175 resistance will be pretty large here. But like I said, if we could break that 175.50 area, definitely have it on the radar. Another nice 8% move, even when the market dropped.
Yeah, CoreWeave has been crushing it. Like, they have been one of the most resilient stocks over like the past month or so, not only in terms of like how well they've been holding up, but also in terms of how much volatility they've had. Like, Tom, we've been talking about this stock for almost 2 months now, and it's still having 8.5% days, and it's still at all-time highs. So very interesting setup, and it is definitely on watch. But besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Chevron, ticker symbol CVX, to the upside.
Chevron's sitting at a huge resistance at $150. If something happens with oil and Chevron shoots through 150, watch it up.
All right, with the next one, we have New Scale, ticker symbol SMR, to the downside.
Unfortunately, SMR pulled back a little bit today, down under 40 bucks. If they can break that low of day at 39, keep watching them to the downside.
And then with the last one, we have McDonald's, ticker symbol MCD, to the downside.
Yeah, this one was a nice downside play from yesterday. Today it opened and ended up ripping through 295.70. Ended up being an awesome play down to where it ended today. If it breaks under 291.80, then keep watching for the downside continuation.
Sounds good. So these stocks are definitely on watch for potential continuations tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels listed. But besides that, it is now about that time for today's $685,000 big money trade. And we are looking at an energy play, ticker symbol MPC, Marathon Petroleum, as you can expect, as oil prices rise due to the situation going on between Israel and Iran, that of course, increases the price of oil, and it definitely benefits companies that deal in the, you could say, refining process like Marathon Petroleum. Looking at this stock, it is uptrending very strongly. These call options are just slightly out of the money. There's a lot of time to them, and it's definitely a very interesting and also exciting play. I definitely think this stock should definitely be on the radar, not only in the short term due to the recent events, but also all the way out through December. We haven't seen too many like energy related big money trades and like big moves lately. So I do like this like recent trend, especially given that we have like real world events to back it up. So very interesting.
Yeah, and it does seem like MPC is getting pretty overextended in the short term, but Marathon is a stock that can trend for a long time. Like if we look at some of these bigger and broader uptrends on MPC, there has been some insane runs in the past that have lasted a lot longer than the one that we're seeing now. I'll just like cherry pick this nice one here where it ran up 44% over the course of a few months from the end of 23 there into the beginning of 24. And that was a pretty nice move. And we can see that like right now, Marathon's up quite a bit from its recent low being like at that 48% mark. But like the overall like uptrend from like that recent low down there could be pretty insane. Right now that's a 112% move. Obviously you have to let it play out over some time, and I think that that's the smart thing here with this big money trade, right? It goes out to December 19th, so it's going to be a trade that you let go for a few months. There could be some period of pullback obviously mixed in between that time, so be ready for that. But either way, I think it's a pretty solid setup for the possible continuation. Again, it doesn't have to play out exactly like the past, but just seeing some of these crazy broader uptrends is just a crazy thing to look at with MPC. You generally don't see that with stocks where they have just like such a straight move like that.
Exactly. And on a side note, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome, and definitely consider obliterating that subscribe button so you can get our videos recommended to you more often. Every single day we cover the most important news, information, current events, big money trades, SPY levels and analysis, and charts and data that you'd never otherwise see. And when you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often. Don't forget, on Thursday, the market will be closed for Juneteenth, so there will be no video tomorrow, but we definitely wanted to say this as a reminder. And we also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Danny, in the StockedUp trading floor, who did extremely well today and definitely deserves a shout out, especially due to this great profit factor here. So we could see they said first morning with SurgeBot, OSCR plus $206, ARM 624, Reddit 649 in just 50 minutes. And what I like more than anything else here is on the loss that they had with MU, where they lost $104. That was so much smaller than all of the winning trades, which is great. It shows not only good sizing, but also good like stop loss management. So huge shout out to you, Danny. Keep up the great work going forward and keep on rolling. If you guys want to get access to the trading floor, you can check out that link in the description down below. But definitely make sure to check out Bookmap. It's awesome. It's X-ray vision for stocks. And like Tom pointed out with Tesla today, it definitely has a lot of value in terms of like looking at key levels of supply and demand. So definitely check that out. And thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.